Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Turner. I am the Director of Credentialing at the Society of American Foresters. Today, I am going to be speaking with Lee Mueller. Lee is on our Certification Review Board, which oversees all of SAF's professional certification programs. The board consists of 9 members, and all of those are professional foresters in some capacity, and we also have one public member. With that, welcome, Lee. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you could just explain a little bit about your background and just your experiences with SAF, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. Happy to be talking with you today. Yeah, I'm a forester. I trained at Michigan State University. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I've practiced in both the worlds of urban and rural forestry. Currently, I work for Davie Resource Group, helping with a variety of initiatives to support our local teams, primarily in Chicago, Detroit, and Minneapolis, thinking about how they can better help our customers through everything from, wetland consulting to urban forestry to invasive vegetation management and pest and disease treatment, right? So SAF, I mean, right out of college, I mean, even in college, I was a member of the forestry club. I was president of my forestry club, which was a chapter of SAF. After college, I had an opportunity to be the chair of the Lower Peninsula chapter of Michigan SAF, and then spent 13 years as Michigan SAF's treasurer. More recently at a national level, I served, on the accreditation committee, which is the committee that helps evaluate and look at different university programs and their forestry and natural resource management educations. And then I think I'm just finished up my first year on the certification review board, which has been an interesting way to interact with SAF programs as well, and just get a better idea of what SAF does, how these different programs develop and how they're built to support the profession of forestry.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you. You've done so much for SAF through the years. I know just since I've been with SAF since 2023, I've really leaned into your expertise. So we can't do what we do without our volunteers. So always appreciative of all you do for us. So with that, if you could talk a little bit about some of SAF's credentials and kind of what sets them apart and the value that you feel like they bring to your profession, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So SAF currently has three credentials. We have the Certified Forester credential, which is the longest standing that was introduced largely to certify practicing foresters in rural environments. That's actually the credential that I carry. And then we have recently introduced the Certified Urban Community Forester credential, which is designed to support foresters that work in more urban or built environments. And then the last one is the Certified Forest Technician, which is designed for folks that have education or background equivalent to a 2-year degree and might be doing some more of the on-the-ground work in forestry. All three of those have the candidate option as well. So if you don't yet have the required experience level for any of those certifications, you can become a candidate and then, graduate on to the full certification once you have passed the exam and have the requisite experience. I think, we have three different credentials because there's many different ways that people work in forestry, whether they're, managing forest or marking timber or working in an urban environment. Those are all aspects of forestry and have slightly different needs in terms of knowledge, education, or experience. And so SAF has seen the various ways that people practice forestry and wanted to create pathways for each of those domains. Um, I think for me, credentials have been really important because they sort of are a shortcut to professional confidence. It demonstrates to other people that you have achieved a base level of knowledge and experience that allow you to practice forestry. So it's sort of a shortcut that employers or public looking to hire foresters might look at and go, okay, I know at the very least this person has a base set of knowledge, and that I can trust that they know that to practice forestry. Another reason that credentials have been important to me is just professional networking. You gain access to a network of other foresters, whether that's through attending conferences or seeking out your CU requirements, that maybe you wouldn't be as deliberate pursuing without the credential that sort of forces you to keep up with knowledge and information. So I've just found that having to get my CUs and interacting with other foresters, um, the certification is that extra little nudge for me to stay up to date on my knowledge and information. And then I think the other thing that's important, particularly about the SAF, the three credentials we have right now, is that they acknowledge that there's nuance in the way forestry is practiced. That forestry, while we're all foresters and we all work in forested environments, whether those are in a city or in a rural area, the way that we think about practicing forestry in those environments is a little bit different. And it's nice to have different certifications that acknowledge how that practice is different and supports the foresters through education, policy initiatives, and so on that acknowledge and recognize that nuance. Lastly, I'll add that I think any certification and every certification helps elevate professional standards. I know there's a lot of different certifications out there in forestry and urban forestry, but each one of them are a little bit different, help move the entire industry forward and help acknowledge how important professional practice is in our particular industry. And so I don't think there's no such thing as too many credentials. All these credentials help support our industry. They help elevate our industry. They help, acknowledge how important our industry is to society and the public. And so I'm just pleased that there's different options available to us, and each one of those have their important place in the work that we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. You raised some really good points, and really give me a different perspective, things that I haven't even thought of, even though, I oversee our programs and everything. It's always good to hear from a professional that's in the industry, that value that they bring. And I'm really glad too that you brought up the candidate statuses too, because, a lot of programs out there, they don't offer that opportunity for someone who's just getting in the industry or the workforce, to really prove that they are serious about their growth and their trajectory in the industry. So I think those, can add a lot of validity to someone who is serious but may not meet the full work experience requirements yet. So thanks for bringing those up. That's always
You
important to
bet.
know. Yeah. So I know you were a really big part of the development of the, Certified Urban and Community Forester Program, or the CUCF, which we began developing in 2023. So with that, just what can you share? I know a lot of what it is confidential, but what can you share just about the importance of just giving time and being part of a development process of item writing or certification program development?
Yeah, I think I'm pleased to have the opportunity to help work through the development of, I mean, both the certified urban and community forestry credential, but I've also participated in test writing and some of the evaluation around the certified forester credential. So having that lens just in how these credentials are developed and how the tests and exams are developed really gave me an appreciation for how deliberate the process is, how scientifically oriented the process is. I mean, I didn't even know a psychometrician was a job. But I've now had to interact with psychometricians. So for those of you who don't know, those are people that, as I understand it, like they specialize in how to evaluate and test, and particularly as it relates to someone's competencies.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting that in SAF credentials and the development, particularly of the urban community forestry credential, there was a lot of emphasis given to first really understanding what are the core job functions or competencies someone needs to practice urban forestry with 5 years experience. Like we're assuming the base level is a degree and 5 years of experience. And so, like in all the pathways in urban forestry, what are the job functions and competencies someone might be expected to have at that point in their career? And then once that's understood, and there's agreement among the professional community that that has been established, these are the competencies. SAF asks professionals who are in various points of their career to write test questions. And all of those professionals are writing questions based on those competencies and how they practice urban forestry in their work. and they have to have references to actual text. So they can't just come up with a question off the top of their head. It has to be something that's based on their knowledge, the work that they do in urban forestry, that they can also point to a scientifically accepted reference. And then that's essentially what ends up becoming the body of test questions. There's further testing that goes through to make sure that all those test questions are actually representative of a professional with 5 years of experience and all sorts of statistics behind it. But I think the gist of it is like it's a very, very rigorous process, and the test and the credential are really designed to be that solid demarcator of a degree and 5 years of experience or other pathways, but that's the base level. You might still have competency by coming to this profession without a degree, but the test questions and everything is set based on an assumption that people taking the test have a degree and 5 years of experience. So it's really interesting just seeing the rigor that's required to develop the credential and maintain the credential. So for me, that was a learning process, just going through all of this and seeing it all play out. I from the outside, I figured it was maybe a little bit more slapdash, but no, it is a very rigorous development process, and it doesn't just rely on a bunch of foresters figuring it out. You have professionals, much like we are professionals in forest. You have professionals in measuring competency and humans guiding this process.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah, that's funny you say that. But, most people don't realize just all the work, all the scientific evaluation that goes into developing legally defensible examination. And that goes back to what you said, making sure that you have questions that link to authoritative references and that all of the things and all of the steps that we can't go through today because we'd probably be on this call for a couple of hours explaining each and every step of developing an exam. But um, it's great just to hear that from you and hear some, maybe you'll inspire some other people to volunteer their time to really get involved in that too.
Yeah, and let me just add, I think because the exams are developed by professionals like, me or other people like me, we're the ones writing the questions. It's not,
Mhm.
people that wrote, the books, or it's not
Sure.
professors in an academic. Although they may participate, they're not the
Right.
only resource in writing these questions. So it's people like you and me writing test questions, meaning that those test questions are really designed and enabled to be like, what are the actual issues and practices, foresters and urban foresters might face when they take that exam, which I think is really helpful. Like I remember the way exams were written, for me as a college student, based on the theory of forest, but these are really rooted in the practice of forestry and urban forestry based on people who are out there practicing it today. And that's what makes these test questions relevant. Because of that, we also need people like me and you to volunteer to participate in writing test questions. These test questions are not relevant unless people practicing forestry and urban forestry volunteer their time and effort to help write the questions, to help, put together the various ways that we can ask different questions regionally and locally, to get at the root of what it is forestry and urban forestry are.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another terrific point and way to look at things. So with that, I don't want to take too much of your time today, but again, I just really appreciate you joining me and just all the work you do for SAF. I know we'll talk soon at the next CRB meeting, but thank you again.
Yeah, and we're gonna pause. I'm gonna add one more thing.
Go for it.
So, I think in particular, SAF credentials are important because SAF is really focused on the practice of forestry and urban forestry in North America. And so these credentials are developed based on the practice of forestry in North America. They represent knowledge that is needed for the practice of forestry and urban forestry in North America. And SAF in particular supports the development of policy for forestry in North America. And I think there's a lot of value in just supporting an organization and credentials that understand the nuance of what it is, the issues that foresters here face, and the political environment that we're working in when we're managing forest, urban forest. And so these credentials in particular have that focus, have that lens, have that nuance. And that may be important to the work that you do, representing that you understand how to manage forest or you understand how to manage urban forest in North America. And these credentials are designed to demonstrate that competency.
Awesome. Thanks, Lee.
Yeah.